Good evening, everyone. In the last session, we completed our discussion related to interceptor use cases, and interceptor development in the project. Today, we are going to understand exception handling in the Spring Web MVC. Exception handling in Spring Web MVC. So exception is nothing but unexpected, unwanted situation that will disrupt normal flow of our application, right? So when we are developing our applications, when we are executing our applications, there is a chance of getting exception in our code. Is my voice clear for everybody? Is it audible?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. Now, so what is exception? Exception means unexpected and unwanted situation. When the code is running, if exception is occurred, that code is going to disrupt our normal flow of execution. Exception means unexpected and unwanted situation. Exception disrupts normal flow of our application execution. Exception disrupts normal flow of our application execution. When exception occurs, programs will be terminated abnormally. When exception occurs, then our program will terminate abnormally. Right. So what is the meaning of program will be terminating abnormally? So whatever the remaining lines of code is available in the program, those lines of code will not be executed whenever exception occurs. Exception means unexpected and unwanted situation. The exception disrupts normal flow of our application execution. When exception occurs, then our program will terminate abnormally. When exception occurs, then our program will terminate abnormally. As a developer, we should handle the exception. We should handle exception to achieve graceful termination of the application. To achieve graceful termination of our application. What is the meaning of the graceful termination? Even though exception occur, we should be able to handle the exception and we should be able to continue our program execution. To handle exceptions, Java provided below keywords. To handle exceptions, Java provided below keywords for us. What are those keywords? One is a try block, second one is a catch block, third one is throw, fourth one is throws, and the fifth one is finally. So in the program, whenever exception occur, then we should be able to handle the exception so that our program execution will continue without stopping in the middle. If you don't handle the exception, then your program will be terminated in the middle. If you don't want to terminate that program in the middle, if you want to continue the execution, then we need to handle the exception. In order to handle that exception, we are going to use a keyword called try, catch, throw, throws, finally. So there are several keywords are available. Right. Now, let me show you the exception handling mechanism. File new Spring Starter project. File new Spring Starter project. Now here, I'm creating 21 WebMVC exception app. I'm creating a project with the name called WebMVC exception app. I'm taking the web starter. I'm taking the dev tools. Next and finish. So I'm creating one project, right? So WebMVC exception app project is available. Got it? Now, so here I am taking one controller. Here I'm taking one controller, new class. So I'm taking a controller with a name called message controller. This one I'm keeping inside a package controller. Right. I'm keeping a package controller. Now here I want to represent this as a controller. For that, we have a annotation called @controller. Then I want to write a method public string get welcome message. Okay. So now here I want to take a message that is some welcome to Ashokai. Something like this. Finally, I want to return that message. This method I want to bind to a get request. So get mapping / welcome. So like this, I have taken one method. That method is binded to get request. In the get request, I'm having a welcome method. Similarly, I'm taking greet method. Now here, I'm giving a message as good evening. I'm giving the message as good evening, and I want to return this message. Here, get greet message. So there are two methods available in the controller. These controller methods are returning direct message without any view page. So for that, I'm using one annotation called @response body. What I'm using, guys? I'm using one annotation called @response body. Okay. So as of now, there is no problem in our application. Our application will execute as expected. Let's verify. Run as boot application. Run as boot application. Now here, application is started. Go to browser. Let's access localhost :8080/welcome. So when I send a request to /welcome, I'm getting the response as expected. And I'm going for /greet. I'm getting the response as expected. With welcome, I'm able to get the response. With the greet also, I'm able to get the response. So currently, there is no problem in our code. Now, my methods are returning the response directly without any view page. So that's why I'm representing the method return types as response body at the controller level. When I add the response body at the controller level, it is applicable for all the methods which are available in the controller. Now, let us see a scenario. Here, integer I is equal to 10/0. Manually, wantedly, I'm writing integer I is equal to 10/0. When I write integer I is equal to 10/0, then what will happen? It will give arithmetic exception. When you divide some number with the 0, then you will get the arithmetic exception. Let us send the request for /welcome. When I send a request for the /welcome, then what is happening? When I send request for the /welcome, it is giving a exception, arithmetic exception. So similarly, in the greet, here I am taking string s is equal to null value s dot length method. I'm performing some operation on the null value. When we perform some operation on the null value, then you are going to get a null pointer exception, right? Now let us send a request for the /greet URL. When I send a request for the greet URL, I'm getting null pointer exception. When I send a request to the /welcome, I'm getting arithmetic exception. Now I want to handle these exceptions. Now, in order to handle the exceptions in the Java, we are having try and catch block. So let me keep this code in the try and catch block. Okay. So here in general in the Java application, what we are going to do? We are going to take a try block and we will take the catch block. Whatever the risky code is available, we will keep in the try block. In the catch block, we are going to write print stack trace. So is this the approach to handle exceptions in the Java or not? Guys, come on. Is this the approach to handle exceptions in the Java or not?
Yes.
This is the approach that we are going to follow to handle exceptions in the Java. Whichever the lines of code, which line of code is giving the exception, that line of code we will keep in the try block. Whenever exception occurred in the try block, then immediately it will go to the catch block. What I am doing in the catch block? In the catch block, I am just doing print stack trace. What is the meaning of a print stack trace? What is the meaning of a print stack trace?
To print the exception details.
To print the expression.
Yeah, where it will print the exception details?
Console.
E dot to print stack trace, it will print the exception details in the console. /welcome. Now see, I'm able to get the response. That means my code is executing gracefully. This line of code is failing, but I'm getting the message as a response. So now user is thinking that responses came back. But if you see the console, in the console, can you see that there is a problem? So exception is available in the program or exception is not available in the program? Exception is available in the program. Okay. Now, so when exception occurs, we are catching the exception and we are eating that exception. Are we giving the exception details to the, are we showing the exception information to the client? Or we are not showing the exception information to the client? Are we showing the exception information to the client? Or we are not showing the exception information to the client?
Not showing.
We are
Not showing.
We are not showing the exception information to the client. My requirement is, I don't want to eat the exception like this. Whenever exception occurred in the code, then I want to show the exception information to the client. Whenever exception occurred, I want to show exception information to the client. So for that, in this spring, we can write the exception handler. So here, arithmetic exception is occurring. Whenever arithmetic exception occurred, I want to execute one method, that is public model and view, handle arithmetic exception. Handle arithmetic exception. Public model and view arithmetic exception. Exception dot get message. So whenever exception occurred, let me get that message. Now let me create model and view. MAV is equal to new model and view. MAV is equal to new model and view, or else new model and view. So here I'm going to set MAV dot set view name. I'm going to specify error or some error page, whatever I want. Return MAV. So when this method should execute, whenever arithmetic exception occurred. For that, I will use exception handler. Value is equal to arithmetic exception dot class. So in my controller class, wherever arithmetic exception occurred, then immediately I want to execute this error. Right? So this error page I want to execute, right? So in order to execute the error page, we can create a error page here in the project, in the templates, new HTML file. I'm giving the file name as error.html. So here I'm going to print a message, some problem occurred. Please try after some time. Please try after some time. A HTML page I want to load. So I want to consider that as a time leaf template. So Spring Boot starter time leaf I want to add. Right. I'm adding time leaf starter. So whenever exception occur in the controller, then I want to display this error page. So when this method should execute, this method is responsible to handle only arithmetic exception. In the project, whenever arithmetic exception occurred, then I want to execute this method. Let us verify. Is it really going to handle that? No. Why? Because whenever exception occurred in our program, we are eating that exception by using this catch block. So whenever the exception occurred here, we should not eat that exception. If I remove this try catch block from here, whenever arithmetic exception occurred in the project, then Immediately, it will check in this controller, is there any exception handler available for the arithmetic exception? Here my method is available. In my method, I have some code, and here one line of code is executing. In this line of code, I'm dividing a number with 0. We know that if you divide number with 0, it is going to give arithmetic exception. Whenever arithmetic exception occurs in the project, it is going to check in the controller, is there any method available which can handle arithmetic exception? Yes, there is a method. Then this method will be executed. Let us check this. Clear the console. Go to /welcome. When you go for the /welcome, it is giving an error. This application has no explicit mapping. Maybe the reason is response body I have given at the class level. Response body I have given at the class level. Now I am giving at the method level because this method is returning the model and view object, not the response. I want to return a error page, error.html. Where is that error.html? Error.html should be available in the templates folder, not in the web app. Error.html should be available in the templates folder. Let me stop this. Right click, run as boot app. Clear the console. Go to /welcome. So whenever I send a request to the /welcome, then what happened, guys? When I send a request to the /welcome, this method is executing. In this method, we are getting a arithmetic exception. Whenever arithmetic exception occurred in this method, then immediately my exception handler is getting executed. What I am doing in the exception handler? In the exception handler, I am returning a error page. What my error page is doing? /welcome. Some problem occurred. Please try after some time. Like this error page is displaying. Now let me send the request for the /greet method. When I send the request to the /greet method, then what is happening? So here, exception is occurring. Whenever exception occurred, it is saying that some problem occurred. Please try after some time. So here, whenever the exception occurred in our project, then immediately it is executing the exception handler. Now for example, let me take another class, another controller. Instead of the message controller, let me take another controller called demo controller. In the demo controller, I'm using @control. I want to see that exception handler is working for only one method, one class, or it is working for other classes also. Or in the demo controller, I have the demo method, demo URL. Right. Now clear the console. If I go for /welcome, error page is executing. If I go for /greet, error page is executing. But when I go for /demo, yes, it is taking that some problem occurred. Please try after some time. So whenever exception is occurred in our project, then immediately that error page is getting loaded. Demo controller. So get greet message demo controller.java 17. So here the exception is occurring. So whenever exception is occurred, my exception handler method is getting executed. That exception handler method is returning the error page. Whenever exception occurred, this method is executing. It is returning the error page. So whenever that error page is returned, my error.html file is opening. In that error.html file, what I have written, whatever the message that I have written in the error.html, this page is loading in the browser. Now see, if I send a request to /welcome, problem occurred. Now, suppose for example, in the greet method, there is no exception like that. Directly, greet method is executing. Welcome method is having the exception and demo method is having the exception. My greet method does not have the exception. This is get demo message. In the message controller, I have a welcome method and I have a greet method. Welcome method will give the exception. Greet method will not give the exception. And here I have a demo controller. Demo controller is having a demo method. Now let's observe, clear the console. go to welcome. Welcome, having a problem. Some problem occurred, please try again. When I send a request to the welcome method got some problem. Whenever the exception occurred, immediately my exception handler is executing. Now let's go for the greet method. When I go for the greet method, there is no exception. When there is no exception in the greet method, it is directly giving the response as good evening. Okay. Now when I go for the demo method, when I send a request for the demo method is failing. So it is giving some exception. Whenever exception occurred in the demo method, then handler is getting executed. Handler is getting executed. Got my point? So here, when you want to handle the exception, there is an annotation called @exception handler annotation. So to handle exceptions in the Spring Web MVC application, to handle exceptions in Spring Web MVC application, then we can create a method. And we can use below annotation. So what is that annotation? @exception handler. So here we can take this method. So whenever exception occurred, then this method is going to execute. This method is going to load that handler, error page. If you want, you can keep a exception class here. So whenever exception occurred, then this handler method will execute. In this handler method, I'm creating the model and view object, and I'm setting the view name as error. Here error is my error page. Here error represents our error page, which display some message to client to try after some time. So like this, whenever exception occurred in our WebMVC application, we will redirect the user to the error page and we will tell to user to try after some time. So welcome is having error, so redirect it to some page. Greet does not have any error. It is giving the actual response. Demo is having error. It is redirecting to some page. So whenever exception is occurred, we will redirect the user to some error page. When error occurs, when exception occurs, then we will redirect the user to error page like below. In the normal core Java application, whenever exception occurs, we will handle that by using try-catch blocks. But when we are developing a web application, whenever exception occurs in the web application, then we need to redirect the user to some error page with a meaningful message. To redirect the user to error page with a meaningful message, we are using one annotation called @exception handler. When exception occurs, then we will redirect the user to error page like below by writing a method, right? So in this error page, we are printing some meaningful message to the user. Some problem occurred. Please try after some time. So this is how we will handle the exceptions in the web application. But when it comes to REST API, exception handling logic will be different. So we are going to start the RESTful services from next Wednesday, right? So in the RESTful services, we are going to understand how to handle exceptions in the REST API. So here, whenever exception occurs in the web application, we are redirecting the user to the error page and we are displaying some meaningful message. So in future, again, we are going to implement this exception handling logic in the REST API. How to handle exceptions in the REST API, we are going to discuss in the coming classes. Remember, we are using one annotation called exception handler annotation. We are using one annotation called exception handler annotation. Good. Fine. Now, guys, we are done with our Spring Web MVC concepts. Now, I want you people to develop one requirement. A project kind of thing I want you people to develop before going to start our RESTful services. Our RESTful services are going to start from Wednesday. RESTful services are going to start from Wednesday. We have 3 days of time. So I want you people to develop one project by using Spring Web MVC plus Spring Data JPA plus Spring Boot requirement. Develop one application. Develop one to-do task application. Develop one to-do task application. Application should contain below functionalities. Application should contain below functionalities. One is user registration. And the second one is user login. Task creation and view tasks. Right. Develop one to-do task application. Application should contain below functionalities. So first one is user registration. User registration should contain name, email, gender, and phone number. Name, email, password, gender, and phone number. So that information we need to take from the registration page. Okay. So once user is registered successfully, then user should be able to log in. Once user logged in into our application should display two options. One is create a task. What are the tasks that you want to do? What is your to-do list for today? So your timetable basically. So create a task. What are the tasks we have created? We should be able to view the tasks. Tasks should be created based on the logged in user. Okay. Now here, when I logged in into application, when I create the tasks, only my tasks should be displayed in the view task. When I log out, and if someone else log in into the application, they should not be able to view my tasks. So here, tasks should be created based on the logged in user. Task creation, and display task functionality. Display tasks functionality should work based on logged in user. Now I'm creating one task today. Read REST API. Develop REST API. That is one of my tasks. Second task, go to gym. Third task, have dinner. 3 tasks I have. Similarly, if you log in into the application, only your task should be displayed. If I log in into my application, only my task should be displayed. If you log in, only your task should be displayed. So it is user login based application. You can register and you can log in. Once you log in, you should be able to create a task. So task name, timing, status. Okay. Like this, you can take some fields here. What task you want to do, when you want to do that task, what is the name of your task, and at what time you want to do that task, date, timing. So what is your task? What is your task you want to do? When you want to do that task? What time you want to do that task? So here you can create. I will create a task. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. I want to go for outing. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. I want to go for a movie. Tomorrow at 7 p.m. I want to go for a dinner. Like this, I will create some tasks. What is the task? When you want to do that task? At what time you want to do that task? So you need to store your tasks. When you log in into our application, only your tasks should be displayed. When I log in into application, only my tasks should be displayed. Are you guys able to understand my to-do application requirement? Are you guys able to understand my to-do application requirement? So develop one to-do task application. Application should contain below functionalities. Application should have user registration. When user is registered, application should maintain the user data. And here, based on the username and password, based on the email ID and password, we should be able to log in into the application. Email and password. Based on the email ID and password, we should be able to log in into the application. Once we log in, I want to display two options. One is a create a task, another one is a view task. So here, create a task form should have task name, task date, and timing. What task, when, what time you want to do it. Your timetable you need to prepare. And when you click on the view tasks, whatever the tasks that you have created, so only your task should be created, right? So whenever you log in, view tasks, only your task should be displayed. If I log in and view the tasks, only my task should be displayed. If you log in, only your task should be displayed. Task creation and display tasks functionality should work based on logged in user. And we should have login, logout functionality. We should have logout functionality. So when user click on the logout, user should land on the home page. When user click on the logout, user should be landed on the home page. User should be landed on the home page. So this is my functionality. This is my requirement. Got it. Yeah. So anybody having any questions on the requirement, they can unmute and they can ask.
Sir, I just have one question related to that exception handling, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, can we use the interceptor itself for exception handling, sir? Because that
You can do that. You can do that also.
Okay.
Sir, what is controller advice annotation?
If you don't want to write that exception handling methods within your controller class, you can create a separate class, and in that class you can write this method. In the REST API, I will explain what is a controller advice, what is REST controller advice, that concept.
Okay.
So
how to do?
Here I'm writing the method within the controller, right? If you don't want to write within the controller, you can write this method outside of the controller. The class which contains exception handler methods, right? That class we will annotate with controller advice or REST controller advice.
Sir, when exception occur in demo controller, how it is coming to this exception handler? It is defined in message controller, no?
Right. So the exception it is taking globally. Whatever the exception handler we are writing, it is taking globally.
Hello, sir.
Sir, it is a local. How it is handling the demo controller? I don't know.
Can you come again?
Yeah, you are writing the method in a model handler arithmetic exception in a message controller .java class, and it handle also demo controller .java classes.
Yeah. So whatever the exception, arithmetic exception we are taking, right? That exception is extending from the runtime exception. So this is a super exception which is available for all the exceptions in the project. Here
in demo controller, you are also it is handling this exception, arithmetical exception.
Both controllers is handled.
It is. So it is considered for both controllers that you are asking, right? Even so, whenever exception occurred in the demo controller, this method is getting executed. Whenever exception occurred in the message controller, also this method is getting executed. How it is happening for the both controllers? So
it is a local.
Right. Let me tell you. In the previous versions of the Spring Boot, that concept worked as a local exception handler. If you write this method in the controller, that is going to handle the exceptions which occurred only in that method. Got it? So now in the recent versions, even if I am writing the method in the particular controller, it is working for all the controllers here.
So for that, we can maintain the separate exception particular controller, and we can handle the.
1 minute. Let me do one thing. Let me make this page as some page.html. Let me give this name as page. run as boot application. Guys, the problem in the greet, it is working. Whenever you write the welcome, it is working. Whenever we write the demo, it is not working. Yeah, see here, guys. So why it handled the both controllers exceptions is, the reason is, whatever the page that we created earlier, what was the name I have given for the page? Earlier, what is the name I have given for the page?
Both
Error.
are error.
Yeah, earlier I have given the page as error.html. So whenever the exception occurred in the demo controller, it is checking, do we have the handler for this exception in this controller or not? Do we have handler to handle this exception, or we don't have a handler for this exception?
We don't have.
We don't have handler for this exception. Then by default, it is checking for a default error page in the project. So earlier I created a page with a name called error.html. So whenever exception occurred in the demo, then immediately it has loaded the error.html. Right. So whenever exception occurred in the message controller, immediately it is checking for the exception handler in this method. So in this method, we have the handler. It is returning a page. Now see, when I send a request for the /welcome, 1 minute, my server is started or stopped. Right click, run as boot app. Okay. That is because of the page name we have given, guys. Whenever exception occurred, if there is no handler available, then by default it is going for error page. As the page is available with the name error, that error page loaded for the demo control also. Now I changed the page from error to page.html. Clear the console. Now I'm sending a request to /welcome. When I send a request to /welcome, then what happened? When I send a request for /welcome, then what happened?
Error handling.
Exception occurred.
Message control.
Yeah, exception occurred in the message controller. When the exception occurred in the message controller, do we have the handler for that exception?
Yes.
We have the handler for the exception. So that exception handler method got executed. Right. Now I'm sending a request to /greet. When I send a request for /greet, what happened? Is there any exception in this method, or there is no exception in the method?
Yes,
No,
it
yes.
does.
There is no exception in the
No
method.
exception.
So greet message processed as it is, and we got the response. Now I'm sending a request to the demo controller. I'm sending a request to the demo controller. When I send a request to the demo controller, exception handler is executed or exception handler is not executed?
Not executed.
Not ex-
Not executed. Why it is not executed?
There is
It's not
no
handled.
The handler method is not available. Why the handler method is not available here? Handler method is available only in the message controller.
Mess.
So it is becoming the local exception handling. So whatever the exception handler I am writing, that exception handler is available in the message controller. So whenever exception occurs in the message controller, then only this exception handler is going to execute. Whenever exception occurs in the demo controller, that handler is not executing. But last time, even for the demo controller, we got the same message. Why? Because the page name I have given as a error.html. When I give the page name as a error.html, whenever exception occurred, if there is no handler available, then by default it is loading error.html. Now, so if I want to handle the exceptions in the demo controller, then in the demo controller also, I need to write a exception handler like this. So is it recommended to write the exception handler in both controller classes like this?
No,
No.
not
Is it recommended to write the exception handler in the both controllers like this? Not recommended.
Not
Why
equal.
it is not?
Duplicate.
Why it is not? Yeah, why it is not recommended to
Boilerplate.
write the handler in the both
Duplicate.
controllers?
Yeah.
Boiler-
Duplicate code.
Duplicate code. In that
Yeah.
scenario, what we can
Global
do is,
exception.
yeah, we can go for global exception handler.
Handle.
So how to create the global exception handler? How to create the global exception handler? To create the global exception handler, we are going to remove the method from the first controller and we will add that method in this controller. Here, I will keep it as exception.class. Whenever exception occurred in the project, I want to execute this class. From the demo controller, I want to remove this. From message controller, I want to remove that. So my message controller does not have that, and my demo controller also does not have that. So here, this method should be executed whenever exception occurs. To represent this class as a exception handler globally, we are going to use one annotation called controller advice. So when I use a controller advice, then what will happen? This handler will become a global exception handler. Now let me stop this and let me run this. Right click, run as boot app. Now go for greet. Greet is executing. Go to welcome. Whenever exception occur in the welcome, that handler is executed. Whenever exception occur in the demo, it is executed. Now, are we able to make the handler as a global?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Earlier when I created that method in the message controller, then that method executed only when exception occur in the message controller. When exception occur in the demo controller, that is not executed. But now, if exception occur in the message controller or demo controller, then my handler is going to execute. How the handler is getting executed now? Because that handler I have created in the controller advice class. What is that controller advice class is doing? That the controller
Handle
advice
global
is doing
exception.
global handling. If you write this method within the controller, that will become local handling. If you write this method inside a separate class, then it will become global exception handling. Got it? So earlier it worked for both methods, because if the page name is error.html, whenever exception occurred, by default that page loaded. Now it will check for error.html, that is not available. I changed the file, page.html, something like this, whatever you want. Problem.html, something like this you can create. If you don't want to keep it as like this, I will keep it as problem.html. So whenever exception occur, then I want to load this problem page. So it will display a message, some problem occurred, please try after some time. If there is no exception, that page will not be loaded, direct response will be processed. Like this, you can make the handler local, or you can make the handler as a global. If you write this method within the controller, that will become local. If you write that method in the controller advice, it will become global.
Sir, I don't want to use presentation layer, then how can I handle exception?
You can directly, here also you can keep response body and you can keep the string as a return type. If you don't want to use the presentation layer, you can keep the string here, right? So whatever the response that you want to return, you can return that.
So can we use for that? We can use the response body annotation also, it's required, right?
Simple.
If you
Here,
use that,
instead of controller advice, we can keep it as a REST controller advice. That's it. You no need to keep that response body also. So all these concepts will come in the REST API.
okay.
Right? Now, whenever there is a problem occurred, I don't want to go for the UI. I want to return the direct response. So here, controller advice plus response body, that is equal to REST controller advice. If you keep REST controller advice, directly this message will come. Let me run as boot application.
Sir, how to do session variables and use in native query?
That is the task I have given you. I want you to try that. Yeah, now I'm sending a request to the greet. I got the message. When I send a request to the demo, UI page is coming or direct response is coming?
Direct response. Direct response.
Direct response.
How to make the global exception handler to give the direct response? REST controller.
REST controller advice.
But this topic will come in the REST APIs, guys.
Yes.
Now, someone is asking a question how to deal with the session variable. So to understand that session concept only, I have given this requirement. See here, can you read this point? Whatever the task you are creating, whatever the tasks you are displaying, that should be based on the logged in user. That means you need to use the session there. I want you to give it a try. So tomorrow is Sunday, we don't have a class. So please try this. If you guys are not able to do, then I will show you this on Monday. Can you try this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Of course.
Yeah. So I want
And one thing for if I say the user password, it is encrypted or directly we can store.
if you know encryption, you can do that, or else you can store normal.
Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Controller advice is using for only exception handling. Other tasks also we can do here.
That is basically a AOP concept. If you want to do some aspecting related, then you will go for controller advice. So that I will cover that in the API, REST API development.
Okay, means one point code is there, no?
Yeah, right. That is the AOP related topic.
Okay, sir.
Yep.
Sir, MongoDB also you are going to explain, right?
Sir, MongoDB already I conducted a workshop and videos are there in the YouTube. If you can go through that, if you are able to understand, okay. Otherwise, I will show one example also.
Can you please share the link, sir, in the group?
Sure, I will do that.
Sir, in Postman, whenever the error occurs, we are getting the message like in trace, a number of lines of code will happen, right? Instead of like to remove that trace, if we want to print our own message, how can we do that?
That is what we are doing, right? So here I am returning the view page. In that view page, whatever the message you want, you can send that message to the model object and you can access that message in the view page.
Okay.
That is the reason for this method. Na? I'm sending a view page. In that view page, whatever the message you want, you can print it. You don't need to print the complete exception stack trace.
Okay.
The problem page is loading. In the problem page, whatever the message you want to print, you can print it. If you want to print some dynamic value, then in the model, you need to set that value, access that value in the HTML. You don't need to send the complete stack trace. You can print whatever the meaningful message you want to print for the user when exception occurred, we can do that. For that reason only, we are returning the view page.
Sir, initially you written error.html, how it is executing internally?
So that is the default behavior of the Spring Boot. Whenever there is a problem, if there is no handler, then directly it will look for the error.html file. If it is available, it will render that file. That is the default behavior.
Can we do custom exceptions also?
Yes, you can do. That is what I told. In the coming sessions, we are going to do it.
Okay.
Sir, in our curriculum, we are can we develop a SSO application, single page, single user, sir?
Single, I did not get your question.
Sir, SSO application is there, no, sir? For
Single
one
sign-on.
Single sign-on. Single sign-on application you are asking?
Yes, sir.
Single sign-on application with Spring Boot. Yeah, I will show one demo on that.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Sir, another thing is we are seeing that through that controller we need to send a file and photo.
Yes. We will do that. I mean, you want to say file upload and file download, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
because
I will show you.
Yes, sir.
Hello, sir. Java real-time project course is starting from 15th March, right?
Correct.
So trainer is you or?
Myself.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, guys, WebMVC notes I have updated in the portal now. Check it. So I have given a requirement in that notes now. I want you people to try this requirement over this weekend and show me your implementation in the Monday session. What you guys have implemented for the task, I want to see that on in the Monday session. Please try to do it before coming to Monday. Thank you. We'll see you on Monday. Good. Request scope, session scope you are asking. The task which I have given is related to that only. So I want you to do some analysis. If you are able to do, good. If you are not able to do, I will explain. Okay, guys. Thank you.
Sir, one last query. How many days more to cover this course, sir?
It may take another, it may take another 30 to 40 days. The upcoming content is the most important content. REST API and microservices.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.